Yeah, obviously a crushing blow to the Red Sox, who had starting rotations issues to begin with, even adding Giolito. The one thing they thought that they could count on from him were innings.
Definitely has drama to cover these days. Sean, welcome to the party here. Great to have you on. And
Thanks for having me,
what
guys.
was, of course, yeah. Let's get right into biz. So, your reaction to the Lucas Giolito news and the potential that he might not be with this team for the rest of the season.
Yeah, obviously a crushing blow to the Red Sox, who had starting rotations issues to begin with, even adding Giolito. The one thing they thought that they could count on from him were innings. This is a guy that supplied 170 innings or more in, I think, 4 of the last 5 full seasons. That's something they were desperately in need of. It was thought that this was going to be an all-in, full throttle, to coin a phrase, off season for the Red Sox. Really, the only starting pitching addition was Giolito, and now he's gone, and likely for not only all of this year, but if indeed it's a torn UCL and he needs Tommy John, then it's unlikely we see him before the All-Star break in 2025. So they'll be on the hook for about $38 million over the 2 years, and if they're lucky, in a best case scenario, they get a half season out of them. So just an unmitigated disaster for the Red Sox, who had starting pitching questions 30 hours ago before this news broke, and now have them doubly so.
I don't blame the Red Sox. I blame the writers, because you guys heard them say full throttle, and I've said it on here 30 times. Full can be spelled F-U-L-L. I think you guys got it wrong, and it's F-O-O-L. It's okay. Sometimes spell check gets it wrong.
We're all human, Eric. I'll go back and listen to the tape, but you may have a point.
But on that, what is the plan? Is there a plan from an ownership standpoint? And maybe the ownership is out of touch and just allows the GMs. But when I look at what's happened, even with Heim, now with Brez, I look at it and I'm like, it seems like the ownership may not have hamstrung the GM, but has definitely not been like, okay, this is the time, we're going in. It's just like, it's almost like a nothing answer. They're always just getting a nothing answer. Or am I wrong on that?
Well, I think you were actually closer to the truth with the hamstring analogy. I think they have been hamstrung. They did spend $225 million last year, but that was a full stop. They weren't allowed to add at the deadline. They weren't allowed to get over that. They weren't allowed to go over the first CBT threshold. And now they're going to open the season at about just over 200 million. So it's definitely a retrenchment on the part of ownership and their commitment to this team. Some have suggested that this is because John Henry, who has also cut spending with his Liverpool soccer team and seen positive results in the wake, now believes that his baseball team should also learn to be more efficient with its money. I don't know if that's true or not, but evidence suggests that there is some sort of that philosophical thinking going on, because they are not spending. They are not the factors they were even 3, 4, 5 years ago, when the Red Sox were always a top 3 payroll team, when they were always a team that were in on just about every significant free agents, or at least asking questions and involved in the periphery. Now, big names come up and the Red Sox are not even mentioned. And it just seems like they're waiting for the big 3, as we call them, Meyer, Teal, and Anthony, to come up and have that foundation to build the next great Red Sox team around. And until then, they're sort of left to their own devices. And it's resulted in 2 straight last place finishes and 3 in the last 4.
Okay, so listen, I follow the Premier League. Liverpool hasn't cut their spending by that much. Let's be honest. I mean, they still have a pretty solid core. It's not like what they've kind of done to the Red Sox and just take them way back, right? And my question is, how long will the Red Sox fans put up with this? Because we already heard about it last year. They started to get antsy, right? Why'd they bring Heim Bloom there? To restock the farm system and get them to,
Well, he did that. I mean, you look at their farm system; it's restocked, and then they get rid of him, and they're like, okay, well, let's try to find a GM/president of baseball operations, and they're like, okay, we interviewed 10 people. Oh, Craig Breslow, you're it, because after allegedly all these people turned him down. So how long will the fans be patient with this until we start hearing things like we're hearing in Oakland, where sell the team, Fenway Sports Group, whatever it's called now, because we want an owner that's going to spend money and put us in the ability to win games and win World Series, because the Red Sox fans, let's be honest, are spoiled now.
Yeah, they are, AJ. And I can tell you that those sell the team cries have already begun. We don't have to wait for that to happen. It's not quite at the Oakland level of frustration and anger, but Red Sox fans are plenty pissed off. They're not accustomed to, as you said, there were 4 world championships in this century, one as recently as 6 years ago. And whether you called it spoiled or not, there are expectations that even if they're not winning World Series, they're at least playing in October and playing meaningful games. That hasn't been the case. They have dropped like a stone at the trade deadline in each of the last couple of years. As I noted, 3 last place finishes in 4, 1 playoff appearance since their last World Series appearance in 2018. So there is plenty of anger. I think the issue is that, how does that manifest itself? Because last year, despite coming off a last place finish the year before, they drew 2.6 million fans to Fenway. You played there. You know that Fenway is its own ticket selling device. People like to go to the ballpark. You have out-of-town fans. We saw last year a lot of visiting teams bringing thousands of fans with them. And I don't think they're going to dip below 2.5 million either this year. But I think where it really will show itself is in terms of, whether it's branding or TV ratings, those are going to take a hit, because it's one thing to say, I just want to go to the ballpark and enjoy, a game with my family or my friends, have a good time, experience Major League Baseball, make an outing of it. It's another to invest yourself in sitting in front of the TV every night for 6 months. And it's hard to imagine that this team, as currently constituted, is going to engender that kind of interest and devotion. So the sell the team stuff has already begun. I think it's falling on deaf ears. There's no evidence whatsoever that John Henry or Fenway Sports Group is interested in selling the Red Sox off. What they are interested in is scaling back their payroll commitment and waiting for the team to get better from within and then adding to it, instead of adding a guy like Jordan Montgomery with Giolito to make them more competitive in the short term.
But wouldn't you add Jordan Montgomery for the fact that Marcelo Meyer's going to be here in the next year and a half, and then you have a starting pitcher? Or is there a chance that they go into the market next year? Because if you don't do it this year for a guy who's going to give you innings, or my opinion is you do it this year with Monty, and then you go and you try to get Max Fried or Corbin Burns, or am I completely naive and thinking there's no chance? Because there's not a single top 10 pitcher in there, or I think number 10 is their prospect list for the Red Sox. And I used to work in the minor league system for the Red Sox. They've done an incredible job. They've just missed on pitching so far. They have incredible position players.
Yeah, that's been a big failing of the last 10 or 12 years. In fact, you have to go back to like Clay Buchholz to see the last time the Red Sox had a homegrown starter come to the big leagues and really make an impact for them. So it's been a long time. They're hoping that Bayo matures into that guy this year and takes the next step. My concern would be now that with Giolito out, he puts too much pressure on himself, says, I've got to be the guy now. I've got to be the number one. And the expectations are such that he puts too much on his shoulders. We'll see what happens there. But you're right. There isn't a lot of close to the big league starting pitchers in that system. They have plenty of position players. I mentioned 3 of them earlier. There are more than that. They've got some guys with major league service time, like Abreu and Rafaela in the outfield. Vaughn Grissom, when he gets healthy, is supposed to help and be the long-term answer at second base. But they have had difficulty developing their own pitching, and that's the frustrating thing. Craig Breslow and his pitching program may have a huge impact over the next few years, but it's not going to impact 24 or 25 because the two guys that are closest, Gonzalez and Perales, are probably a year and a half or 2 years away. And that's if they get there and have an impact right away. You guys know that young pitchers don't have linear development. There are ups and downs, and Bayo's a reminder of that. So it's hard to make sense of what they're trying to do. We understand that Breslow is the guy that is supposed to be sort of the pitching whisperer and bring some of the things he got done in Chicago here, but that's going to take time, and Red Sox fans are running out of patience.
So let's be real. Are the Red Sox tanking this year? Because many fans are thinking that they should be even more aggressive on a phone conversation with Scott Boras about Jordan Montgomery or Blake Snell right now. The other side is that ownership is looking at the team, punching in projection numbers and saying, even if we do sign this player, we're a 4th or 5th place team in the division. So who cares?
Well, the thing I would say to that is that if they're tanking, they're doing it in a very expensive way. Because when you look at the teams that did it well, the Astros, the Cubs, the Orioles, they all went well below $100 million in payroll. This team is kind of caught in that murky middle where they're spending $202 million. That's about where they are right now before opening day. So it's the half in, half out problem. If you want, I think it would actually be easier to sell that plan and approach to Red Sox fans. Look, we're sinking to the bottom. We're going to spend $120 million this year, but that's going to get us another top 5 or 6 draft pick, and we're going to slowly rebuild. And look how the Astros did it. Look how the Cubs did it. Look how the Orioles are doing it now. The problem is when you're at $200 million, you're just good enough to hang around 500 as they've been the last couple of years. You're just good enough to be on the periphery of the playoff race when the deadline comes, and yet you're frozen because you don't have the flexibility financially to add, and you're close enough so that it's difficult to sell off and send that message. They're occupying a very murky space in the middle, and it's getting them nowhere.
Which is more likely? The Red Sox finishing at or above 500 or Alex Cora coming back next year?
I would say both are long shots right now. I don't envision Cora coming back. I think he looks at what happened with Craig Counsell, who smartly made himself into the first modern day free agent manager, got teams into a bidding war and got himself a terrific long-term deal from the Cubs. I think Cora believes he can do that too. And because they're not going to be very good, a 500 season would be something of an achievement at this point, particularly in the wake of the Giolito news. It's hard to envision that Craig Breslow is going to take a look at a guy who, whether you want to blame Cora or not, has managed a last place team for what will be 3 years in a row, and give him some sort of extension. So it may almost be by mutual agreement that Cora leaves, that he wants to see what's out there, and Breslow isn't convinced he's the guy to extend long term in the first place. So they both shake hands and go their separate ways. I would say that neither is a likely scenario. Let's put it that way.
On Alex Cora, I don't know if you read Ken Rosenthal's article that came out recently about it. And, I'm not putting my house up for sale and, I still want to be here. But then he's like, but I have young kids in Puerto Rico and I want to, do this and do that and see what's out there. Now, there were rumors he wanted to be a GM / president of baseball ops. Is there anything now he denies it, obviously, but is there anything inside of this that's like, Alex was like, well, I didn't get the GM. I didn't get the president job. I'm still the manager. Maybe I'll look at something like that instead of managing again.
No, AJ, I think he wants one more managerial contract. I think he wants to manage about another 4 years or so, but he wants to do it at a salary closer to Craig Counsell than his own right now. I think there are designs to be a front office person down the road where you're not away from home quite as much. But I also think that Alex recognized in September, after Bloom's firing, after initially there was some speculation that he might be a guy that could be promoted and do that. I think he's got more of the managerial bug for the next few years. He wants to stay in the dugout, but he has said, I don't see myself as a Tony La Russa or Bobby Cox or Buck Showalter, managing into my 60s and 70s. I think he wants to get one more deal, make some money, and then reassess what he wants to do going forward with some consultation with his family.
Sean, last one. So it looks like Vaughn Grissom is going to start the season on the IL. I liked the addition for them. I also have said in the past week, I think Chris Sale might have a dynamite year. So what did you think of that trade? And I don't know if you know anything else about Vaughn Grissom in that situation, but like we mentioned, there is some position player depth, but I think he will have a nice career for them.
Yeah, I think they're pretty excited about him. They were when they made the deal. They ended up taking back about $17 million to facilitate that trade, to move on from Sale. I just think it got to a point where they didn't think they could count on Sale to be that 170, 180 inning guy. As it turns out, he looks great this spring. And the irony is that it's Grissom, the guy they got for him, who will start the year on the IL, while Chris Sale is going to probably pitch the second or third game of the season for the Braves. So we'll see how that turns out long term. But the Red Sox think Grissom is very athletic. They love his bat-to-ball skills. He's got to learn a little bit more about the intricacies of second base, turning that double play from the other side, having been mostly a shortstop. He's played some second in the minor leagues. I talked to Ron Washington, who, of course, is probably the greatest infield coach in the game, who had Grissom in Atlanta. He's very high on him, but says that the Red Sox have to stay on him a little bit, work with him. And that's the hard thing about this groin strain that's going to keep him out early, is that he's losing time to work with Trevor Story in spring training, get comfortable with the double play partner, get comfortable with those feeds and the pivot at second base. I think he's athletic enough to figure that out, but it may take a little time, but they think they have their second baseman of the future in him.
I understand the trade and the Chris Sale and everything, but now the Red Sox, again, we've talked about this, they need starting pitchers. Did they go too soon on the Chris Sale thing? Were they like, we can get Vaughn Grissom? I understand Vaughn Grissom might turn out to be a great player, but is there any looking back on it saying, man, maybe we should have kept Chris Sale? And I know his salary, but they did send a ton of money. Basically, Chris Sale's almost playing for nothing for the Braves this year. So I don't know. It just seems like maybe this is Breslow, maybe this is John Henry looking down on Breslow saying, hey, we need to shed more salary, which is all the Red Sox really have done this offseason. But did they move too early on Sale?
Well, we're going to see over the course of the season, AJ, what Sale is in 2024 in Atlanta. Alex Anthopoulos is a pretty smart executive. He was confident enough about Sale's, relative long-term future to extend him, which I think surprised a lot of fans in New England who saw how brittle Sale had been the last few years. I mean, this is a guy who hasn't made 25 starts in a long, long time. So while I wish Chris Sale the best, I think ultimately we're going to have to see how durable he is in Atlanta. But the fact that, they essentially swapped Giolito for Sale, not only in terms of spot in the rotation, but payroll and salary. And now Sale is looking great in camp, and Giolito may be lost for a year and a half. It certainly leaves them open to some second guessing.
And we're going to have Alex Anthopoulos on Friday to talk to us about that trade and whatever else is going on, and probably flex a little bit if Sale ends up working out like this. Sean, pleasure having you on. At Sean_McAdam, if you want to follow him on Twitter and check out the articles on MassLive.com. Thanks for the time.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.